Hello and welcome. My name is Maze. This is Maze Core. Thank you guys for being here. I really appreciate you all. And let's get into it. So, as promised, I am doing a video on vision therapy. So, personally, I've been through vision therapy. I have something called vision processing disorder. Now, vision therapy can help multiple different people, including people with ADHD, which is a super common diagnosis and super commonly misdiagnosed to people. For example, a lot of people with vision processing disorder oftentimes are misdiagnosed as ADHD. Personally, I am kind of a miracle from vision therapy. It worked out way better for me than it does for most people, and it changed my life. And I don't say that lightly. So when I was in 6th or 7th grade, I was diagnosed with vision processing disorder among other comorbidities. And if you don't know what comorbidities are or you want to know more about that, I did do a short video on that prior to this one. So check that out. I will link it below. Now, going back to that, I was diagnosed with it in 6th, 7th grade, and that was kind of it. I wasn't really told that there was any help for me or anything like that. I was just given a diagnosis and that was that. The problem with that is when we don't help disabilities, especially in today's world, they kind of fester and they cause anxiety. And then the anxiety makes the disability worse and they kind of just play off of each other until they end up erupting. For me, I ended up suffering from something called vision overstimulation. My anxiety was so high, my disabilities kept getting worse, and it caused vision overstimulation. And I would not wish that on anybody, truly. Visual overstimulation was one of the worst things that I've been through. It essentially was like looking at everything like a hypnotic spiral, like an optical illusion. Everything I looked at was almost had that pulsating nature to it. It was awful. I had anxiety attacks, panic attacks. I couldn't even go to school. I was exempt from, basically, I had doctor's notes constantly that said that if I didn't go to school, it was fine because it was that bad. I couldn't. It was bad. Anyways, one of the ways that we kind of helped this was my parents were able to homeschool me, and they put me a part of something that was called vision therapy. I'm really blessed. I want to make this first off very clear. Not all parents can do this, and I would eventually like to create a program in the future to help kids so that things like this is more accessible for them. My parents, I grew up on a farm. They sold my farm so that way they could homeschool me and afford vision therapy and occupational therapy and regular therapy and all these different things that ultimately helped me become the person I am today. So, what is vision therapy and what is vision processing disorder? Well, let me take you to when I first met my vision therapist. When I first met him, he took me to a bunch of tests. Now, I've already been diagnosed with vision processing disorder at this point in my life, but basically he was trying to pinpoint the exact places that I needed help. So one of my favorite tests that favorite stories, I guess, is when he tested me and he put these giant, they were basically like biology goggles on me, and I had no idea why. I didn't know there was other tests that basically kind of distorted my vision a little bit. So I wasn't sure if it was supposed to be something like that, but it didn't seem to distort my vision at all. So I was a little confused. I didn't know what it did. He didn't tell me. And so he told me to read something. And so that's what I did, was I read this passage, and he told me to read it as fast as I could. I read it as fast as I could, and then he had me take a comprehension test. Well, after that, he turns around and he looks at me and he goes, "I have no idea how you got a 90% comprehension on that test." And I was like, "Why?" And he goes, "Because you didn't read that in order at all." So essentially and I'll show you guys like on a book. Essentially, the average person will read a book and they'll go straight across like that and just go to the next line. Well, my vision was going like this, all over the page. There was no consistency. There was no just going straight across. How he was able to figure that out was by the goggles. So essentially, they were taking pictures of my eye movement, and they could figure out what word that my eyes were looking at based off of those pictures. So when he showed me, it highlighted the different words across the page, and yeah, so it was very interesting to see how my eyes were actually reading, just to see that physical kind of representation, that my eyes were all over the place. That was one problem I had. My eyes weren't able to track properly like a normal person. I also had no depth perception. So essentially, think about it like this. If you are at a stoplight, or you're driving towards a stoplight rather, and there are 2 cars in the right lane and there's 1 car in the left lane. As I'm coming up to them, it is essentially going to look like they're at the same length. So even though 2 cars is obviously going to be longer and going to be closer to me, it would basically seem like the 1 car was also at the equal amount. So instead of seeing like this, I would see like this. So I was still able to drive like that because that was my normal vision. Like I was already kind of used to figuring out depth perception by then. It just kind of came automatically. But that was also what was causing my vision processing or my vision overstimulation. So that's why that needed to be fixed. There was a point, I had already been driving because I was 17 years old. You can get a license in Florida at 16. And so I'd already been driving for like a year, and I had to quit driving. My parents took my keys away and everything because my vision was changing while I was doing vision therapy. So I wasn't driving very safely anymore, so it was a good thing. But yeah, for about 2 months, I had to let my vision adjust. And yeah, so when I got all these tests done, they basically looked at me and they were like, okay, so you are at 0 percentile. And so the way percentile works is 50 is average. Anything below that is below average. Anything above 50, even 51, would be above average. I was as below average as you could get at 0 percentile. And they're like, you're at 0 percentile and we can get you to 20 percentile. And I was like, that's not near to average still. It's still about 30 points off, but that is so much better than where I'm at. And this is why I say that I am a miracle, is because I really worked hard. I did my vision therapy at home. I did it there, which, by the way, I had to drive about an hour and a half, 2 to 3 times a week for vision therapy, which is kind of crazy. That's there and then another hour and a half back home. So I did this for about a year, a little over, and I got retested and I ended up at the 86th percentile, which is kind of crazy and unheard of. Not only did I surpass the 20 percentile that they thought I would get to, I ended up being above average, which is insane. Now, this doesn't mean that I don't still struggle with vision processing disorder and those symptoms. I still struggle with it. My anxiety is really high one day. I struggle with it more. If I don't have 20/20 vision, I struggle with it more. So these are still things. Every day isn't consistent. There are certain days where when I'm driving, in order to see depth perception, I look at the shadows of cars, which is kind of crazy. But vision processing disorder basically can be a nightmare, and vision therapy is something that really made a difference on my life. I very, very rarely have vision overstimulation. And normally if I have vision overstimulation, it's because I'm getting sick or something. My immune system is low, something like that. If I have my ears are ringing, something is going on. It's pretty rare now. I went from having panic attacks and screaming on the floor because I was in so much pain, my brain was so overwhelmed, to being able to live my life. Vision therapy is something that is underrated. A lot of doctors still don't believe in it. But I am proof that it does work and it can change someone's life. Anyways, if you guys want more information on vision therapy and all it does, I only gave you guys a couple examples. Please let me know in the comment section below. But this is also something that can really help people with ADHD as well. So I think that if you have ADHD, you should definitely look into it and see what your options are. Anyways, I will see you guys all later, and thank you guys for listening. Make sure you give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you later. Bye.